So, Sindre, gamification is seen as a way to make work more engaging and fun in a lot of ways, but I think there's also a lot of pitfalls, like both in terms of, gamification, metrics, KPIs. You can really encourage the right kind of stuff, but I think there's also a risk that you kind of drive wrong behavior or kind of unintended behavior in some cases. So I would be really curious to hear like your kind of strategies for making sure that gamification encourages the right stuff and not makes this kind of unwanted outcomes happen.
Sure. Yeah, it's a good question. I would say it all comes back to the sales process, right? So, what is it actually that you want people to do, and what kind of behaviors do you want to entice them into doing? So, let's say you're a software company. Maybe you're a I don't know a BDR team. So your end goal is to get qualified opportunities for the sales reps. Okay, that's the outcome that we're driving. Now, trace that back. How do you get it? Well, usually I have a phone call that leads into a meeting, and then in that meeting we do some preliminary discovery, and that if they qualify, it's passed over to the AE. All right, perfect. So how do you get them on the phone call? Well, I add them to a sequence. I do multiple steps. Okay, so that's where it actually starts. It's adding context to a sequence. Now we've found the activities, the day-to-day things that reps should focus on and have a consistent level of activity to actually reach their ultimate outcomes. So if you're incentivizing them on the wrong types of activities, that could be a big pitfall. So you could say, only do phone calls. That's how we get meetings. Well, actually, it's not. It's also because that we warmed them up and we sent a couple of emails and we did a LinkedIn outreach and we did a multi-channel outreach. So you can't only do phone calls. You also need to reach them on other channels, and you kind of like lose sight on that. So you always have to trace your steps back and see what successful people are doing, and make sure that you gamify the right types of activities to get to the goal.
But would you like when it comes to the gamification then, so like would you kind of look into a lot of different parameters and kind of aggregate it all together, or do you focus on specific things when you do it? Because yeah, I would like what you said there as well with the call activity and things like that. So encouraging that, okay, smile and dial, as I think the old saying goes. And just focusing on that, you're gonna incentivize people just, talking to maybe irrelevant people just to get that number up.
Yeah, that's a good point. So those things can definitely happen, but I would say that in order for gamification to be really impactful and helpful, you need to somewhat oversimplify your sales process. So the essence is that you want to dial it back into actions that reps should be taking, preferably on a day-to-day basis, where more is better. That's the dream. That's the ideal setup. And obviously there are something called conversion rates, which I think is also really helpful. So when you see that they have a high dial number, but they're not getting those meetings, that next step in the funnel, the conversion rate is going to drop, and you will really quickly identify where are they struggling if you have those conversion rates in every step of the funnel, and then you can coach them effectively on what they're struggling with. So in that case, you would very quickly be kind of like busted for doing fake phone calls that doesn't actually lead to the ultimate outcomes that you're driving, because the conversion rates are dropping. So you need to focus on that as well, so you kind of retain a level of quality, and it just doesn't become a numbers game or only quantity. You need the balance of both.
I like the simplification bit as well, and tracing things back to specific actions. Like I'm a big proponent of. I think a lot of companies actually overcomplicate a lot of things, and yeah, like a lot of times mistakes. So when it comes to simplification, like what would typically be the step? Like if you like say you guys work with like gamification a lot, SalesScreen. So what would be things that you would say, like if you come into a new company and you would kind of guide them a little bit in terms of like how can they actually simplify and find the real actionable stuff? Like what would be a typical approach that they could take there?
The approach would be to run down the funnel. So it would be like, all right, what is the current pain points that you're struggling with? How can we help you? So you obviously start with good discovery, and you make sure that you can align towards the things that they actually care about. And that doesn't always have to be productivity increase. It could also be the fact that, we see ramped reps are much more productive and better than anyone else. So we want to retain them. Or culturally, we want to make a culture where people are more proactive and less reactive and are waiting for the managers to kind of hit them with the stick. We want them to go for it. Like, how can we change that culture? So it doesn't always need to be hard-hitting elements that you can incentivize towards. But I would try to kind of like say, okay, in the case of a BDR team, then your outcome is to build pipeline. Great. How are you doing that? And then they would run me through their process of getting pipeline. I would note down typically the activities that we can that individuals can influence themselves. So it's always easy to say, oh, we want $200,000 worth of pipeline every month. All right, great. But like if the reps don't understand themselves how they're going to get there, that's hard to do, and it doesn't help to put like gamified elements on that outcome, but because they don't understand the input that's necessary to get there. So that's like a really big pitfall for running gamification on outcomes. Then it becomes more of a recognition program. A nice to have, you get the pat on the back, you get a celebration song when you get that meeting, that's great and it's fun, but it's not really going to drive the outcomes itself. Then you need to pull it back into the outcome. So we really use some time with the clients there to make sure that we actually break it down into actions that they believe will drive the right outcomes. And those are the actions that we want to gamify. And we simplify it so that it becomes 3 to 5 metrics at most. And that's just because human beings are, we're not incapable of focusing at 10 or 15 things at a given time. It's just not possible. At least not for, dudes. But maybe my wife, sometimes she's able to do 10 times in parallel with my 3 kids. But like, I would never be able to do that. So we have to keep it simplified and like try to keep it around 3 to 5 things to focus on max.
Yeah, I mean, I think okay, there was a lot of different things here, so like I have a big list of questions, but like with the kind of a focus thing that you mentioned, like I definitely agree that focusing on fewer things. I mean, you can always do multiple things at once. I mean, you can walk and talk at the same time, but being able to actually focus, I think actually focus is supposed to be singular and not plural. Same priority, I think that's actually intended to be a singular word because you can't really have 5 priorities, but it's also very scary to do it, right? Because you actually need to pick.
You do, but that's where you guys come in and the RevOps function, because you identify the biggest weaknesses and things that we actually need to change, behaviors that we need to change, and then you can use a gamified system or a gamification program to actually rally the troops to get them to care about that, to keep it top of mind. So that's another pitfall per se to gamification, is that if you set it up once and you kind of like let it run and you forget about it, it's not going to have the same impact as if you keep it fresh and you actually change the focus metrics up once or twice per quarter.
Okay, so you would do like actually multi-quarter like reviews of the KPIs and areas of focus based on, I guess, conversion rates, activities, and goal attainment, and you would actually adjust it?
I would do that, yeah. It depends on the size of the customer as well. Not everyone is that agile and fast, but most software companies are. So I would definitely recommend having like a fixed cadence. Let's say once per quarter, you actually look over the results that was generated, and that's something that inside at least our platform you can see that through the Insights tab. What is the metrics that we focused on and how they developed over time, an average per contributing user. So that actually becomes very apparent. Like, these are, let's say, the competitions that we run. This is the impact that we got from each of them. The top, middle, and bottom segment move this, and this much. So maybe we should run more of that type of competition, less of this. That wasn't as impactful. So you kind of like take all of that intelligence that you're gathering within the tool, and then you revise, what we're going to do next. So you make your next quarter gamification plan. Are we going to change it up? Do we want to have different types of spiffs that we put in place? Or do we need to change the metrics that we're tracking? Because the ones that we have now, we have enough activity on it, but we need to focus more on conversion, for instance, to increase quality. So that is it's a strategy more than anything else. And as you know, a strategy needs to kind of be alive and constantly adapting and changing as you grow.
Yeah, it's not the annual drawer placed strategy that you do once and then never look at again. At the end of the year, you're basically saying, oh, that was actually pretty good. Too bad we didn't do that, because that would be pretty great. So I do think that kind of ongoing revisiting the goals is super important. Like, how would you balance like the kind of, because like individual goals are of course great, and I like in some cases, if it's only team based, that might be like, hey, I'm doing a lot, some people are not, and they're kind of winning because of me. So there's always that risk of friction. But on the other hand, there can also be the case where like people don't want to help, they just want to focus on their own stuff because that's how they're incentivized. So we are trying to work a lot with a combination of the team-based stuff, so we win together and encouraging that. For example, for LinkedIn and stuff like that, we basically have either we all win or no one wins. Like, what is your experience in kind of those two different paths, and what do you usually see working the best?
I think this is a really critical, let's say, question that needs to be answered by a gamified program. Because the reality is that any team consists of different types of personalities that have different types of motivational drivers. So we usually lean on Richard Bartle and his research, and he basically did a big study of a lot of gamers, and he categorized them into killers, achievers, explorers, and socialites. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So he was kind of like, why do people spend so much time on games? Like, what is their drivers and motivation behind that? And he found, for instance, like the killers, they love being on top of leaderboards and winning and kind of, leveling up and that kind of stuff. While the explorers, they just wanted to explore the open world and see different paths they could take to get the goal, right? And then you had the socialites, which actually was like the majority of the team. They were driven by social recognition, the pats on the back, the fact that you could interact with someone else and be a part of a team and feel connectedness. So what I'm getting at is that if you have a gamification program, it's so much more than just a leaderboard. That would simply, intrigue like the killers, the ones who love to be on top of it. So it's an important element, sure, but like an even more important element, I would say, is like the social feed, where you can see somebody just did his best week ever. Amazing. That's an achievement. That's being surfaced in the social feed. Now they can gain likes and people can add gifs and comments, and that's going to fuel, their motivation because they're a socialite. So this is like a super critical part. Like a successful gamification program needs to have game elements that speaks to all types of personalities in order for you to move the needle on the middle and bottom performers, because the killers, they will always stay on top. They're intrinsically motivated. They're delivering, the value, but it's that main chunk of people, the socialites, the team-based people. If you get them to move just a tiny bit, that's where the money comes in.
Yeah, and I would say, probably everyone have a little bit of the social life. Like everyone want to feel like they're appreciated and they matter, no matter what I think people say. Like everyone likes a little bit of a pat on the back and feeling that, what I'm doing actually matters. But that's actually really interesting with that kind of like how you can look at computer games, because they are really designed, also a big old school like World of Warcraft player here, so like the whole thing with leveling up and getting that kind of micro achievement, because I think also that would be a big part of gamification, is basically you don't just have the super far away, you have your annual target and your quarterly stuff, but you also have that kind of micro
incentivization. Yeah, it's a big part of it. I would to talk to this, I would say that motivation can be broken down into two. So you have the extrinsic motivation, and you have the intrinsic, the motivation that comes from within. So when people think about sales, they always think about extrinsic motivation. They have their commission model, that should motivate them. Sure, to one level, it does. I'm in it for the money. It's a big part of it. But the intrinsic motivation, that's much more sustainable. That's much more emotional. And it's definitely, if you want to retain employees, that's where you need to invest. So how can you give them intrinsic motivation? In a gamified system, we like to say there are 4 currencies that you can deal out to people. So yes, you have the things, the extrinsic factors. You could give them coins, they could redeem gift cards or whatever. But you also have the 2 most important currencies to a gamified system, which is social status and social capital. So, and by social status actually means self-esteem. So sorry about that. But so you can actually give them a self-esteem boost. And that is, in a way, much more worth for most people than, a $50 gift card. And if you can give them, they rank up and they become a much higher level because they've been loyal to the business over time. So they're actually, a general or a second level prestige or whatever that is. Then you will have social capital when someone new comes into the business and will like, sit down. I'm a general here, so I've been around the block, and that gives you some social capital in those interactions. So it's like you need to tie into more than just the stuff to actually be successful and to drive that intrinsic motivation, which is just much more emotional and long term.
Yeah, and it feels better to talk about the like if you tell why you're doing something, saying you want stuff, like it's like this thing you always have a bit of that, right? But it feels better also to talk about the stuff like the intrinsic versus the extrinsic. But yeah, I mean, in the end, like it sounds silly, a lot of it, like the whole thing with being a general and stuff like that. But like we are all kind of partly run by like silly stuff, and it really works, at least in my experience as well. Like titles and achievements and things like that. It really actually does for as you said, the social status, and people want to, feel like they matter.
I think an excellent comparison is the training apps. Like think about Peloton, why that was such a success. You had the spinning bike. You were sitting at home and you were supposed to spin and sweat for an hour and just feel good with yourself, sure. But then Peloton came. They mounted a big TV screen on top of that bike. And suddenly you had leaderboards. You could see the input. They were tracking your stats, like how much resistance are you having and how much calories are you burning. And you could kind of race yourself and you could race others and you could go up to new heights and you could gain like streaks and you've done 5 exercises this week. Like all of those elements, suddenly your motivation to exercise on that spinning bike skyrocketed. And that's pure gamification.
Yeah, we're quite simple, like in general. Like we're like I know myself as well. Like I can manipulate myself. Like like a little bit of gamification in the day to day, and even if I'm aware it's myself doing it to myself, it still works. So I think it makes everything way more interesting. And have you seen it as well? Like thinking about because if you don't gamify anything in your life, I think it's way more boring as well. So like,
totally agree.
Have you seen things there as well in terms of, just like general kind of, because of course you have the dark side, it's like, especially I think with, you mentioned there with the different types and you have I don't remember the phrase, but like the lone wolf go-getter, the killer. Yeah, the killer. Yeah.
The killers.
Like, so actually I kind of lost my question here. What was I supposed to ask you? Oh yeah, like so that person would always gamify, I think. Like they would all have a competition with themselves and with others, but I don't think it's natural for a lot of people to do it. But you can also drive wrong behaviors by doing it, and that person will feel on top, as you said, because you have revenue goals, and they will a lot of the time be on top of that because they're just so competitive, and that's going to feel other people more kind of feeling like this is not really fun because I never win.
Yeah, I'll give you that's a excellent remark actually, because it's very apparent in a gamified program. So let's take an example of running a sales competition. That's probably a very normal thing to do. The normal thing to do is to have pit people against each other, like individuals, and you put that on a leaderboard. So let's say, whoever closes the most deals this month or creates the most meetings, win. And maybe if you're really at it, you say we have a first, second, and third place prize. The problem is, as you're saying, we all know that's going to be John, Bob, and Olga. They always win. So yeah, there's a race on who of those three are going to win. But like I who am on the middle of the pack, I'm never going to win. So why should I care? That's not going to motivate me at all. I know the moment that competition starts, I'll just go about my day as I always do. And the way to kind of combat that in a gamified environment is that you need to switch it up. You need to introduce the element of chance. Give them a fighting chance. Instead of having a leaderboard, you could say every meeting you book, you get a raffle ticket, right? And by the end of the week, we're gonna draw the winner. So if you have 5 meetings, you get 5 raffle tickets, but as long as you have one, you can actually win. And that is going to incentivize me because I've never won something before, but now I feel I have a chance as long as I contribute something. You get what I'm saying?
I really like that idea with a little lottery. I haven't actually ever thought about that approach to it. I think we had it once actually at Hubspot. We'd had some. I actually won that competition. I didn't even realize I was in it. But no, I would definitely say that, yeah, like making people feel that you can actually win. I think that's something that people miss a lot because I think a lot of sales can recognize that, well, I have the wrong territory or they started sooner than me, and you start making up a lot of excuses and it stopped being fun.
There's another point actually you're making for me, so appreciate all this. But it's like there's a tendency to run too long competitions. Like a month long is a long time. You're going to have high interest in the beginning, and then you have the valley of interest going down, and then it's going to go up again towards the end. So, this is not the way you should run sales competitions. What you should do is that you should instead break it down into, let's say, 4 competitions where you focus on 4 different things, and you have like weekly sprints. Because then you have the interest level high in the beginning, and it just doesn't go down as much because you're already at the end. So you, in general, you just have much more interest when you do it like that.
Yeah, because it becomes normal and day to day, and it's not front and center.
Yeah.
I think like with any kind of goal, like if it's too far out, it's like an annual goal and not breaking that down into quarterly, monthly, and weekly stuff. Like it's just going to be very difficult to keep it and make it. It's not tangible and it's too far away, so it doesn't feel real. Especially, I think at the beginning, if it's too big of a goal, I think that's a bit of an issue.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so let's see here. So we have the different drivers, motivation. We talked about the different currencies and social capital and status. So how would that bit work? Like, how do you become a general? Is that like some kind of a leveling system that you have in your system that you're using, or how would you kind of do that and visualize that? And if you don't have a system, how could you kind of make a simple version of it?
Now, I think that in the start, we said that we didn't say we were a gamification platform. We said that we were a sales motivation platform that replaces the blackboard and the bell. So basically, people could, for instance, to celebrate the wins and get the socialites engaged, they could have like a gong in the office or something that they ring when they have good wins to kind of create that excitement. Excuse me. Yeah, exactly, right? No, so that's a big thing, especially in American culture. But another one is like the whiteboards. You can have like you can draw a line every time you do something. Then that kind of creates a leaderboard or even a contest type of space. Let's say instead of having a gamified system where you can actually give out raffle tickets and spin the wheel, you could have envelopes, and each envelope could have like a dollar bill. Some could have a $100 bill, right? And some could be like, take 10 push-ups. And every time you book a meeting, You take a random envelope, you don't know what the price is. You could be really lucky, right? Or you could get those 10 push-ups in front of everyone. So that keeps it exciting. So you can do a lot of like games and gamification without actually having a program. It's just going to take much more time and be a bit more cumbersome. But I would definitely like start by breaking down into the activities that you want them to focus on, and then create some spiffs around it, some competitions around it. Recognize when someone had their best week ever or their first meeting this month. Talk about it, scream about it, make it visual everywhere. Like write emails, Slack updates, put it on the intranet. If you have something like a digital signage, put it up on the TV when someone is the seller of the month. Like make it known. All of this is gamification.
And yeah, no, so that's the push-ups. That's like the for the I would just add a lot of that. Like I'm evil, so you could get into trouble with that. I think maybe I'm not sure if that's allowed anymore to have push-ups as like punishments as a part of it. Maybe that's
Yeah, we used to
dangerous.
have that. I had to remove it when we started to
Yeah, I would
expand in
say
the
that
US.
that
So
might be a dangerous at least today. Uh,
yeah, that's
Something
true.
to keep in mind. Keep it nice and friendly. Maybe that's the 2024 way of doing things. Um,
Oh.
by the way, but what stage do you think you should start looking at this? Because I know that you've historically been working a lot with SaaS companies, but you also work a lot with kind of more like telecom, like bigger kind of business development organizations. Like, is this something that is mainly for big organizations, or should you start with push-ups and dollar bills when you just have a few sales reps, or what do you think?
Yeah, I think you should start simple. So you probably don't need like a comprehensive platform like SalesScreen to begin with, but you should do something like the envelope game that I mentioned, and some basic leaderboards, and have that mindset of gamifying your sales process early on. But the more you grow, the bigger the pain is going to be to actually recognize the individuals and motivate the individuals across that spectrum of different player types. So the bigger team, the more value you would get from a gamification program. And maybe, when you're around 15, 20 people, I would say it starts to become mission critical. I would say you could explore a simple version. Like we have something that we call SalesScreen Essential, which is like more of a self-onboarded solution of the tool, where you can start very simple. You only have access to a couple of competition types. You get the leaderboards, the dashboards, the TV visualization. You get all the basics. So you can really test out the concept, but it costs $15 per month. And you can pay month by month if you want. So you can start simple like that, and then you can upgrade to an enterprise subscription later on. But our clients ranges from typically that size, 10 to 20 people on the low end, to the biggest ones we have is like 20,000 at this point seats in our platform.
When you say like around 20, was that like sales reps or total size of the company?
Then I would say actually sales reps, yeah. So yeah, no worries. But it's like the smaller you are, the more transparent the information perhaps is in a way. So I know what Andreas and Olga and Per is doing. I know how well they've done this week. I know where I am compared to them. So I actually don't need something to tell me that. You could still do a couple of like fun exercises and games to create attention and focus around certain metrics, but you don't need a gamification platform. That's something you need when your team is much bigger. Another element to that is just the more transactional of the work that you're doing is, the bigger benefit you have of a gamified platform. If it's like enterprise sales, it's really hard to pull that sales process back to like 3 to 5 activities that you need to focus on. So in those cases, it's perhaps less valuable. It's more of a recognition tool, really, than to have something that is for like a BDR, where you expect them to be consistent with their activity and hit the phone every day and add new context to sequences and personalize those invites. That is a tougher climate to do consistently over time, and a bigger gain or value from something like a gamification platform.
No, but I still really like the kind of thing of focusing on very much on actions and controllables, because I think when a lot of companies set targets, it's very much kind of in in the long term you can impact it, but as we talked about before, it's kind of too vague and it's too kind of, there's too many variables involved. But like, you can always connect with someone on LinkedIn. Like, there's not really, unless your internet disappeared, like you can always do that. If they reply to that connection, well, that's a different story. But like that specific action and actually on the short term leading with that, I think that's such an important thing to focus on. And I think a lot of roles, like for us, it's we are kind of focusing a lot on LinkedIn, for example. So we also going to do a little bit of gamification on a very simple level with kind of a monthly kind of, yeah, as I mentioned, like a team goal based on a set of activities that we believe is important. So even if we are also more kind of a bit more account based, I would say, when we come to selling, things like that, I think there's still like, if you want to encourage a specific type of behavior that you believe is a good play for enterprise, for example, you know, it might still actually be viable.
I can give you, another example. Like we're seeing more and more customer success teams stepping into the platform, and that's historically perhaps not the function that we've had the most business with. But we see today that they have so many requirements on their day-to-day work. Like they're expected to get clients to give you G2 reviews or like Terra reviews. They're expected to give referrals to the sales team. Obviously, they're also going to upsell and drive expansion. They're renewing the client, which is the biggest thing. There's so many focused things that they need to talk about and do. So it becomes a bit overwhelming. And we've seen a lot of value in like having that regular focus on how much are you actually going to renew this quarter and get those celebrations as they renew. And then you sprinkle in like micro incentivization, like this. Now we're having a G2 campaign. Get your clients to actually write reviews, and we run an individual and a team-based competition. So the more steps that we actually achieve as a team, let's say first base camp is at 5 reviews, and then in 10, 20, and 30, the prizes for the whole team becomes better and better as you climb the mountain. Excellent way to boost those reviews and get non-paid reviews that is going to earn you those badges that you want.
Yeah, basically, it's not just sales that are the social type. Like everyone want a little bit of recognition, and I think, yeah, as we talked about before, like anything where you can put a little bit of gamification in. Like I'm sure there are roles where it doesn't. I'm not sure trying to gamify for developers. Maybe they're just gonna be angry with me. I don't know. I'm not sure if you've ever tried that, but I would say customer success, I think, is a really good potential case as well that is probably quite like overlooked.
Absolutely. I think that obviously being SalesScreen and developing this program, every function of our company is on the platform. And there are elements to any employee recognition program, I would say. Like we have that built into our tool where you can, for instance, you have this virtual currency of coins that you can earn through unlocking achievement and doing a 20 contacts added to a sequence consistently 5 days. Here you go, coins. Or you win competitions, coins. Or you endorse someone, like thank you for fixing that bug quickly, or you've done amazing work this month on LinkedIn, here's 1,000 coins. And that recognition is shown on TVs, up in the social feed, it sticks to your profile, you get the coins, you can redeem rewards that you want from the reward shop. And that's a way that you can engage the whole company. So we kind of call them supporters, and we give that license type out for free, so that the engineers and everyone else can then have eyes on the social feed and be a part of that endorsement culture that you're creating of appreciation back and forth, so that you have bigger accountability, more eyes on what you're doing as a revenue team. It's better for the revenue team. So there are use cases for the rest of the company, but I would say that's more towards the employee recognition part.
And I think with that as well, like just remember to give the people who do stuff a little bit of praise every now and then. I think a lot, including myself, are not good enough at that. And we can tend to forget, how important that actually is. So on a little bit more philosophical level, give a little bit more praise next year. I think a lot of people would be happy about that in general. Cool. I think actually one last thing I had that I realized that I was gonna ask before, and then I cut off my own thought in the middle of the thought and changed it. Um, but it was kind of about the kind of happiness, like impact on happiness and satisfaction. Like, have you seen kind of clear like differences there in terms of like how that is changing, you know, employee feedback and things like that with gamification, or is that not something that like you would measure or see in general? I would imagine it would be in a lot of cases better, right? Or
Yeah, it is. We run a lot of pilots with enterprise customers, and part of that pilot is always going to be a survey where you ask the end users, did this actually make you more productive on a day-to-day basis? Do you feel more motivated now that you have SalesScreen? Do you feel more appreciated now that you have SalesScreen? And the results from those surveys is always in the high nines in average, which is insane, honestly. So a little bit of recognition goes a long way, to your point earlier. So it's very quantifiable when you survey people like that, and did this make your work more enjoyable? Yes, and that's ultimately what I was setting out to do. If I could make that boring, mundane job as a call center agent or field sales rep or a BDR more fun and exciting, I know that's going to bring joy to them, their families, and everyone else. So it's really a rewarding program to work with. But it goes a long way. And you also mentioned like the dark side, I think, to some extent. Like, for instance, when you have a leaderboard, I just give a quick best practice advice. Maybe not create a leaderboard that showcases everyone. Let's say limit it to the top 50% performers, so that it actually becomes an honor to be on the TV screens on the leaderboard. So that the ones having a bit of a bad month aren't felt like feeling the heat so much. At least in the Nordics, that's a more culturally sound way to do it. Obviously we have American customers who put the TV screen in their cantinas, and then they enable the reverse leaderboards to showcase the ones not doing so well, so you don't want to sit around and eat. But that's luckily not that many.
yeah, I mean it's the low performers didn't know. Everyone knows anyway, so
Yeah.
I don't think shoving it in people's face like more times than that is necessary. Yeah, like I know we've been jumping around. I have so many questions, but I think the show today is never gonna end if I keep on going here. So I think we can kind of round off a little bit here with a question that I would always ask, unless you have something that you really felt like I missed that would be an important point. Or I think we covered quite a lot.
I think we did cover quite a lot. I just think if you want to change behaviors, it starts with visualizing the metric behind it, because we're talking to RevOps here, right? So like break it down into metrics that's easy to understand, and then make it really top of mind. That's something that is equally as important as any gamification program. Just get it out there. That's gonna make people accountable. That's gonna change behaviors. So you can do a lot without the gamification program as well. I'm not like the best seller here, but I think some of these principles should be adopted by everyone.
Yeah, so basically pick a few focuses, know how you want to measure things in general and what drives the right kind of outcomes.
Yeah,
Put a plan together, visualize it, and keep
make
bringing
it
it
top of
back.
mind.
Yeah, keep it top of mind and do that kind of, as we said, like micro transactions, be that coins, push-ups, social praise, whatever it might be, but do that often and not just something that you look at every now and then forget about. So I think like that, if you just keep that on top of mind, even without gamification, even though like with a system for it, even though like I think some way to store and track things is always beneficial.
Yeah.
But no, awesome. So as a final little roundup here, so a question that I would ask everyone. So what is a learning or insight that has significantly changed your perspective on life and or business? So we're going philosophical here.
Okay, going philosophical. Then I would say it's all about the people that you surround yourself with, and that goes both for life and for business. So in your personal life, as you kind of grow up and you get older, you maybe establish a family, get kids, you realize that you have less and less time for yourself. And that also means that you might actually have to make some hard prioritizations on which friends do you want to keep close and which friends are actually giving you energy, and maybe deprioritize some other ones. And in business, it's the same. It's like as you grow the company, you go through different life cycles and stages, and you need different types of people to actually get you to the next one. So even though you love somebody, the right move could actually be to part ways and get that next person who can navigate around that corner that you haven't before. So surround yourself with great people that gives you energy, and your life is going to be more enjoyable.
Love it. I think that's a very good final words to end the episode today with. So thank you very much, Sindre, for your time today. It was an absolute pleasure. And yeah, I had a lot of questions here, and I have a lot more. But yeah, thanks a lot for your time. It was really interesting to have you on and share all your knowledge.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.